I was eating goldfish on the bleachers when two fourth graders asked my teacher if they could play kickball, and she stepped back and threw her hands up. Don't ask me, ask the king. They both turned around and walked toward me shaking. They were 2 grades older than me and a foot taller. They stopped at the bottom of the bleachers with their eyes glued to their shoes. Can we please play kickball at recess? I took my time finishing the goldfish in my mouth. I wiped the orange dust off my fingers onto my jeans. Tell me why. They both forced their eyes up to meet mine. The shorter one mumbled it was his birthday. I flicked my fingers like I was swatting flies. Have fun. They thanked me 4 times each before sprinting off. I reached into my bag for another handful of goldfish. A minute later, Mrs. Givens walked over with her hands clasped together. Sorry to bother you, sweetie king. There's a 3rd grader telling kids they can't use the swings today. I told her to bring him to me. She nodded and walked off to find him. That's when a teacher I'd never seen before stormed across the yard pointing straight at me. What in the world is going on here? Why are these children acting like you're in charge? Mrs. Givens sprinted back over and grabbed his elbow. Stop talking right now. The new teacher yanked his arm away and turned back to me. I am not letting a 2nd grader run this playground. He marched up the bleachers and grabbed my wrist. You're coming with me to the principal's office right now. Before he could pull me down, 2 men in black suits came running across the yard. They slammed him into the grass and pinned his hands behind his back without saying a word. I climbed down from the bleachers and crouched next to his ear. Don't you ever disrespect me again. I dropped a goldfish into his mouth, stood up, and walked off. That's when the principal came running out of the building. He took one look and dropped to his knees. Please forgive us, Miss Sweetie King. Mr. Dealwood will be fired by the end of the day. I kept walking past him without a word, munching on goldfish. The principal slapped Mr. Dealwood in the back of the head. You idiot! Her family runs the entire underground crime scene. I was drunk in an Uber when I heard my driver say on the phone in Russian, yeah, the body is in the trunk. I understood every word because I learned Russian from my Russian boyfriend. I kept listening and he said, I'll drop this passenger off first, then we'll dump the body. There was a dead body in the trunk of this Uber. I didn't want him to know I could understand what he was saying, so I kept my eyes on my phone and didn't move. I was trapped with a killer, and I didn't know if I'd make it out alive. He had the phone on speaker. The voice on the other end said, how many do you have in the trunk today? The driver laughed. About 5. I gasped. There's multiple bodies in the trunk. Then the voice asked, is anyone else in the car? The driver looked at me through the mirror. Just another stupid drunk American girl. Do you think I should kill her too? I felt my stomach turn. The voice said, up to you. The driver smirked. I do have my gun in the front seat. It wouldn't hurt to kill her too. I had to do something to get help. I opened my texts, found my boyfriend's name. I was still drunk so I could barely type. He's gonna kill me. I'm an Uber. Please help. I screenshotted the Uber trip details. I clicked send. No response. It was past midnight and he was probably asleep. I thought I was going to die and couldn't stop shaking. The driver noticed me shaking and looked at me through the rearview mirror. He turned around. You okay back there? No, I think I'm gonna throw up. He rolled his eyes and pulled over at an empty gas station. I reached to open the door, but it wouldn't open. It was locked. When I looked up at him, he was turned around in his seat with the gun pointed right at my face. I was going to die. I flinched, waiting for him to pull the trigger, and suddenly, red and blue lights flooded through the windows. A cop was standing right behind his window with a gun pointed at his head. Drop the weapon. Hands up, now. They ripped him out of the car and cuffed him. I had no idea where the police came from, and that's when I got a text from my boyfriend. I sent the Uber details to the cops. Are they there yet? He understood my drunk text. Then a cop tapped my shoulder. This man has been on our wanted list for months. You just helped us catch a serial killer. Having a hot Russian boyfriend saved my life. I grew an inch, and my parents were terrified. My parents told me I had a rare condition that prevented me from growing normally, and I needed to take medication every day. When I was 16, I was only 4'3" and weighed 55 pounds. One day, I heard my dad say, how much longer do we give her the pills? Mom said, just until she's 18. After that, it won't matter. I didn't understand what they meant. I went back to my room and started Googling my condition. I couldn't find anything about it anywhere. I searched for hours and found nothing. That night, I pretended to take my pill, but hid it under my tongue instead. After my mom left, I spit it out. I took a picture and posted it online. Someone responded saying it was a veterinary growth suppressant used to keep show dogs small. I felt like I was going to throw up. I secretly stopped taking the pills. My mom measured me against the wall where she'd been tracking my height for years and freaked out. She said, you've grown an inch in 2 weeks. Something's very wrong. She started crushing the pills into my food to make sure they absorbed properly. So I stopped eating anything she gave me. I grew 3 more inches in a month. My dad sat me down at the kitchen table and said, your condition is worsening. We need to try a more aggressive treatment. He showed me brochures for a surgical procedure that would insert metal plates into my bones to stop them from growing. That night, I went to look at the brochures and found something else instead, a document about a trust fund. It said my grandmother had left me $2 million, but only if I was over 5 feet tall and healthy at 18. If I was under 5 feet tall and classified as permanently disabled, the money would go to my parents as my legal caretakers. Just then, my parents walked in. I said, you've been poisoning me since I was born so you could take my money. My dad said, your grandmother created an impossible situation. We chose what was best for the whole family. I said, you chose $2 million over your daughter. He pulled another bottle of pills from the safe and said, we can still fix this. My mom moved in front of the door and blocked it. I screamed so loudly my neighbor heard and called the police. My parents were arrested and charged with child abuse abuse, and fraud. I got the $2 million, but I'll never get back the height they stole from me or the childhood I spent thinking I was sick when I was really just being robbed.
I woke up in the back seat of my parents' car to red and blue lights flashing through every window. 6 officers had the car surrounded with their hands on their holsters, and my mom and dad were already outside with their palms flat against the hood. An officer opened my door, asked if I was Tracy, and when I nodded, he pulled me out by the arm and walked me to the curb. He told me they received 2 911 calls and a thread of text from my phone during the drive reporting that I was being held hostage in a moving vehicle. I told him I didn't call anyone because I was asleep for the entire ride home. He held up my phone and scrolled through texts that said, "Please help me, I'm being kidnapped, I can't get out." I kept telling them it wasn't me, but they turned me around and put me in handcuffs anyway. And my brother started laughing like this was a joke. My mom screamed from the hood of the car that I would never do this, and then she stopped. "We have a dash cam. Check the dash cam." The officers pulled the footage and watched my 9-year-old brother pick my phone off my lap while I was asleep, dial 911, and whisper that he was being held hostage, grinning the entire time. When the cops questioned him, he said it was because I caught him snooping through my phone and told him I'd call the cops if he touched it again. He thought I was serious and tried to get me in trouble first. They took the handcuffs off me and put them on him, but he cried, "Wait, I'm just a kid." They walked him to the squad car as he screamed for them to take me instead, but they shoved him into the back seat. My brother spent 3 months in juvenile detention for filing a false police report. I was pushing my baby on the swings when an old woman walked up to us and said, "Such a beautiful baby. May I see his shoulder?" I immediately pulled my son off the swing and backed away. As we left, I heard her whisper, "The birthmark. I need to see if he has the birthmark." 2 weeks later, she was parked in front of our building, hunched over her steering wheel crying. When she saw me notice her, she drove away quickly. I held my baby extra tight that night and decided to take him to a smaller park 6 blocks away, just to be safe. But she showed up there too, this time with a teddy bear. The tag was still on it, but it looked old, like it had been saved for decades. I grabbed my son out of the swing and yelled, "Leave us alone!" But she latched onto my shoulder and said, "Please, I just need to know about the birthmark. Does he have a star-shaped mark on his left shoulder?" I yanked her hand off and threatened to call the police. She backed off but followed us home at a distance, repeating, "My son had the same mark. Please just tell me." The next time she was at the park, a woman was with her saying, "Mom, you have to stop this. It's been 40 years. James is gone." The older woman broke down completely. "He's not gone. If I could just see the birthmark, I'd know." That's when I'd had enough. I marched over with my baby in my arms but froze when I saw her holding an old picture of a baby that somehow looked exactly like mine. "What's going on? Who is that?" I freaked out. The old woman said, "This is my son James. My ex-husband kidnapped him when he was a baby." Then she pointed at my son's shoulder. James had a perfect star right there. "Tell me, does your son have it too?" She looked so desperate and broken that I finally answered her. I pulled my son's sleeve back to show her the star-shaped birthmark on his left shoulder. The old woman's legs gave out. Her daughter caught her as she sobbed uncontrollably. "My husband has the same birthmark," I said, "and he's adopted." The old woman looked at me and whispered, "What's your husband's name?" "James."
Right as the bell rang, Mr. Dawson stood up. "Wait, nobody move." Everyone was confused, but he looked at me. Everyone whose parents still love each other may be dismissed. Everyone looked at each other. My mom abandoned us years ago, but half the class left. He looked at me. "Everyone who saw their brother today can leave." I had a really bad feeling. He knew my little brother Ethan went missing a few weeks ago. It was just me and another boy. "Everyone wearing black today can leave." Now I knew something was very wrong. "Mr. Dawson, can I please leave? This isn't fair." I tried to stand up, but he stopped me and pulled out his phone. "Yeah, she's here. Come inside and take her. I'll make sure nobody sees." My heart started beating. "Mr. Dawson, what are you talking about?" He stayed silent, getting something from his drawer. I knew this was my chance, so that second, I sprinted for the door. I grabbed the handle, but someone opened it from the other side. I yelled, "Please, my teacher is kidnapping me," but I saw who it was. My heart stopped. It was my mom. "Mom, what are you doing here?" She walked past me and hugged Mr. Dawson. "Nice work, babe." "Babe? Mom, why are you hugging Mr. Dawson?" She didn't say anything and tried to grab my arm. "Let go of me." She squeezed tighter, and suddenly, Mr. Dawson put a blindfold over my face. "Ah, help!" They pulled me outside, and I didn't know where I was. "Mom, please!" I heard a car door open, and they pushed me inside, but a second later, someone took my blindfold off. It was my little brother. "Ethan, you're alive!" I hugged him, but as I looked around and realized we were in the trunk of a car, Mom kidnapped me. She wouldn't let me leave. I knew something was wrong, but we started moving. What do we do? I started to panic, but then I remembered it. A Law by Mike video told me exactly what to do in this situation, so I started kicking the taillights. It popped off, and I stuck my hand out screaming, "Help me! Someone please!" I prayed someone would see, but we suddenly stopped. Someone walked to the back, and Mr. Dawson opened the trunk. "Hey, don't you ever try that again?" But then we heard sirens. His eyes went wide, and he suddenly pulled out a gun. Ethan and I gasped. Mr. Dawson climbed into the trunk with us, pointing it straight at me, but we heard the sirens right behind our car. We heard a cop talking to my mom. "What's with the busted tail light?" "Oh, nothing. Don't worry." But he walked right up to it. Then he leaned closer to the opening. I knew this was my only chance. "Help, please!" Mr. Dawson pointed the gun at me just as the cop opened the trunk. I screamed and watched him pull the trigger. I was about to die. I heard a bang and grabbed my chest, but when I opened my eyes, I was fine. The cop shot at Mr. Dawson first, hitting him in the arm, and as they put him and my mom in handcuffs, she looked at me in tears. "Please, I just wanted my children back. I'm not a monster. I crossed my arms and said, everyone getting a life sentence may be dismissed. A car door opened and 3 men in suits stepped out, while the little boy in the middle pointed at my daughter's lemonade stand. That's her. The men walked, and I watched as the biggest one put his hands on my 8-year-old's table and leaned over. You know what you did? She scratched her chin. I changed my recipe, but the man slowly took off his glasses. My son ordered a full cup of lemonade last Monday and only got half. We're here to make it right. He pulled out a phone and showed my daughter a picture of a half-filled lemonade cup with her stand in the background. Her eyes immediately widened in anger. Wow, I am shocked. Give me 1 moment, please. She sprinted over to the neighbor's house and immediately dragged out a boy wearing an apron. He froze when he saw the men in suits, and she crossed her arms at him. You worked the Monday shift. Why did you short this customer? She glanced at the boy surrounded by suits. The men immediately stepped forward, towering over the trembling boy, but she snapped a hand up in their faces without even looking at them. This is an internal matter. She snapped her fingers at the boy, and he immediately poured 4 full lemonade cups to the brim and slid them across the table, his hands shaking so bad he spilled some. Please try our new recipe. His voice trembled. As he looked more scared of my daughter than the men, they glanced at each other and took their cups, walking back to the car. She waited until the doors shut, then set a hand on her boy's shaking shoulder. Because you're new, I won't take this out of your salary, but I don't tolerate mistakes here. I put the plate of chicken nuggets in front of my daughter Rebecca and her friend Stacy, but my daughter instantly slammed her fork down. What the hell is this? I told you I'll only eat lobster tails and truffle pasta, Mom. My eyes went wide, and I thought back to a few days ago when Rebecca told me Stacy was rich and only eats fancy food, so she needed me to pretend we were also rich. I didn't even have time to say anything before Rebecca pushed the plate away. Stacy's mom has her butlers make us 5-course dinners. I know our butlers have the week off, but you could at least try. This is so embarrassing. I'm sorry, Stacy. I looked over at Stacy staring at the plate of chicken nuggets, and Rebecca snapped her fingers. We want truffle pasta. She put her arms around Stacy. It's okay, my mom will make us actual food soon. That's when Stacy reached out and picked up a chicken nugget. Rebecca's face dropped. Stacy, what are you doing? You don't have to eat this poor person trash food. She reached to yank the nugget, but Stacy just took a bite, and her face lit up. She pulled the plate towards herself and started eating. Rebecca tried to stop her, but Stacy's eyes filled with tears. Rebecca, please stop. My mom only makes me caviar and escargot. I have to sit up straight and eat with 9 different forks and wear dresses and do my makeup just to have dessert. I just want to eat chicken nuggets like my friends. She turned to me with a mouthful of nuggets. Thank you so much. These are delicious. I nodded, then looked at Rebecca. She realized that sometimes the more you focus on what others have, the more you forget what's already yours.